Writer's Corner is made possible thanks to the following sponsors. Jaime's Haberdashery of St. Paul has become an anchor of the downtown business community. A modern store with classic decor, it provides everything in clothing, both custom and tailored, plus offers a huge selection for both men and women. There is now also a Jaime's in Red Wing. Calumet Editions, an eclectic publisher of fiction, non-fiction, and poetry, introduced a new business model nearly a decade ago, in which the publisher and author work as equal partners in a joint venture. Their stable of authors have won numerous and prestigious prizes across literary forums. Where traditional publishers fail to see the value in projects, Calumet cooperates with his authors in realizing a book's potential.
This is session number 3 of Writer's Corner. I'm Alan Miller, and the object of the show is to bring you some of Minnesota's really great and talented writers. I do want to mention as we go into this that we've been very fortunate to get 2 sponsors for the show, which certainly relieves some of the financial pressure for a show, a local access show, and Calumet Editions, which is a publisher of many authors and many books in Edina, and Jaime's Haberdashery, a St. Paul fixture for men's clothing. Both have joined us as sponsors, and we welcome them aboard, and we're very grateful for them. With us today, we have 2 very unique authors. Brian Lutterman is an attorney, and he is the author of the Penn Wilkinson series about a paraplegic attorney, very unique in its fashion, although he has a book coming out that I think is just a standalone, as
Correct.
we call them.
Correct.
It's not one of the series.
Right.
Jeffrey Burton has gone to the dogs. And what can I say? He's got 3 fascinating books about dogs, a canine series, mystery series, very unique. And as usual, I'm just going to turn the floor over to our talented writers and let them take it away.
Well, thanks, Alan. First off, thanks for inviting us here.
Yes, thanks for hosting us.
I think anytime I can shoot the bull with Brian about kind of the writing craft is always a good day for me, so it's an honor to be here. And I want to talk to Brian about Penn Wilkinson. I love your bookmark. She's a crime-solving attorney who's smart, feisty, and funny, and paraplegic. And to me, that adds a level of suspense because she's disabled and confined to a wheelchair, and so that kind of heightens some tension. And so tell us the backstory, the origin story.
Sure. Well, people ask, where do you get your ideas? And for me, sometimes I see something specific that inspires me. That triggers an idea, a person or a situation or a place, whatever. And other times it just seems to pop into my consciousness. And with Penn, it was both. I saw a person that gave me the idea, or I noticed a person, and his name is John Hockenberry. He was a reporter for public radio for a number of years. And I believe for TV later on, but he was and is a paraplegic, and I read his memoirs about trying to function as a paraplegic as a reporter, and I remember one scene in particular. He had this huge story. This was in the pre-internet, pre-cell phone era. He had this huge story that he had to phone in to his editors. It was breaking story, and as I said, it was pre-cell phone. He needed a phone booth. Well, he found the phone booth, but he couldn't get inside the phone booth. Couldn't, and later on, his editors, well, what was your problem? Why didn't you get us this story? It's like, I use a wheelchair. I couldn't. And I thought, that was nice premise. That was something you could do. That was just scratching the surface of the suspense and the problems and the resourcefulness that you could create with that. And then, so I had the idea for a paraplegic character, but then one day Penn just popped up into my consciousness, pretty much fully formed. A young lady, 6 feet tall, blonde, confined to a wheelchair as a result of a car accident, in which there was a fatality of her young niece, and a lawyer. Well, like nobody's perfect, but it's something I'm familiar with, and and then her personality. I can hear her voice. I can hear her. Imagine her sentences, her words, and so it's been a great character, I think.
Well, I just wanted to ask you, because as an author, having someone that's disabled, and I know with Penn, she's got to use her wits in the courtroom, but also eventually the villains know that she's onto them and they come for her, and so you wind up putting her in tight spots, and since she's disabled and confined to a wheelchair, is that fun or challenging or both?
Oh, it's both, absolutely. It's very challenging, of course. She can't run, can't use karate kicks or anything to get out of. She, as you said, she has to use her wits, and so and the bad guys definitely come for her over and over again, and so I love writing those scenes.
I think a lot of the you and I are both research nerds.
Right.
But I think in your case, because there's so much that I would say the car that she'd have to drive would have to be accessible, and ramps, and even her home. I don't even know, the kitchen and certainly the bathroom, right, and just all the stuff that would be. Right.
I've had to learn about all that. I found a gentleman who has a handicapped van, and he showed me all the neat stuff you can do with that, and I have researched a lot of it. I try to get it right, but I still have readers who will write in and say, you should have given her a better wheelchair than the one you have. It's a clunky one, and things like that. But I think mostly I've gotten it right, but my readers love to get involved and tell me things that I've missed. Well, speaking of protagonists, now it dawned on me as I was driving down this morning. You're beginning your 3rd series now, mystery series. And your series have featured an FBI agent, a cadaver dog trainer, and a serial killer. Now, I see a pattern here. Actually, I don't. Do you want to tell me if you see any pattern?
Yeah, it's the craziest thing is about a dozen years ago, I wrote The Chessman, and that was published by McAdam Cage, and it got some good reviews and sold in a few countries. And I didn't know anything about the publishing business, and the president of McAdam Cage called me, and he's like, do you want to do a follow-up? And I'm an idiot back then. I'm like, you mean with the same characters? Yeah. He's like, yes. Yeah. And so I wound up doing 2 more of the Drew Cady mysteries. And then I wrote a book about, my wife and I are dog lovers, and we tend to adopt dogs that aren't wanted. And so I'd written a book about human remains detection dogs, cadaver dogs, and it was just kind of one book. It kind of was complete, but the editor at St. Martin's Press said, "Hey Jeff, we love the character. Would you consider doing a series?" And when a publisher asks you that, there's only one answer. It's yes.
How soon?
How soon is. And so that's been a lot of fun. And then I guess my origin story is I've got Mace Reed, and in the Finders we're introduced to him, and he's kind of at a low point in his life. He'd married his high school sweetheart, but she decides that she doesn't really want a life that's, dog trainer with dog-centric.
He lives in a trailer, Jeff.
He lives in a trailer.
Give her a break, okay.
She's got to, when he's gone, she's got to take care of the dogs, and so she's leaving him, and he lost one of his dogs to renal failure. So he's in kind of a low point, and he's able to adopt from a animal shelter in Chicago a golden retriever puppy named Vira. And he winds up training her to be a cadaver dog and finds out that she's just really, I think one reviewer said she's the Sherlock Holmes of cadaver dogs. And he winds up, part of the thing that it can support a series is whenever human remains detection dogs, they find a body, there's going to be at least a little bit of mystery. There's going to be something there. But now and again, Mace and Vira and the other dogs, Sue and Delta Dawn and Maggie May, they'll find a body that winds up ripping open a Pandora's box of murder and mayhem. And you root for Mace and you hope the dogs will help him survive.
Yeah. Now, Brian, you have a book coming out that's not a Penn Wilkinson book. Is that correct?
Right. It's a standalone. I will write more Penn Wilkinson books. In fact, I'm quite a ways into the next in that series as well. But this book is called Incel, and you may have seen incels on the news. They're young men who are, incel stands for involuntary celibate. So they're not, they don't do well with the opposite sex. And they often become embittered and very nasty online and sometimes even violence. There are at least half a dozen mass shootings across the U.S. that can be, and Canada, that can be attributed
many
to
times
incels.
you see that where he was a loner, he was an individual, he didn't mix well. Right.
And so so anyway, I thought that would be a good subject for a book, and so I've set the book here in Minneapolis, and my protagonist, former FBI agent with a real interesting anti-terrorism background, and along with his girlfriend, a former CIA deep cover agent, and I think it's a good premise. It's got my usual things that I do with a lot of twists and turns and a lot of suspense, a lot of action. So I'm excited about it. It should be out in the spring of 2024.
That's a great title.
Yeah.
And Jeff?
Yes, I have another series coming out, and I've got an idea drawer, and it's in the kitchen. It's where I put my wallet, my car keys, and I'll write down on scratch paper certain ideas that come to me, and I'll toss them in the drawer so they can ferment. And if you remember 2020, when COVID and we're at home and we're kind of streaming all sorts of shows on TV, and my wife and I, we kind of OD'd on the true crime documentary. Netflix and Amazon had a lot of those. And so I had jotted down what happens if a serial killer is not happy with his portrayal in the TV documentary. And so I tossed that piece of scratch paper in my idea drawer where it sat for 2 years until 2022 when I started writing it and had some fun with that. And it's called The Dead Years, and it will be coming out next March of 2024.
March of 24?
Yeah.
Right. And again, that's not a dog book.
It's got some dogs in it, but it's not like Mace Reed.
Right.
It's got a couple of dogs in it. The protagonists are a brother and sister. The sister is a detective, and they had kind of a family tragedy where their parents died, and she moved home so her brother could finish high school, and in the home he grew up in. And so It's going to be interesting because it winds up kind of a real cat and mouse between them and this gentleman that did not like his portrayal in the documentary.
Wonderful premise. Wonderful.
A very, very different approach.
Well, can I ask? Do you base your characters ever off of real people? And I hope you didn't base a serial killer off of real people. But do you base your characters off of real people? And how about the dogs? Do you base them off of real dogs?
Well, you know, with the dogs, I do base them off. I've got a beagle that when I take him for a walk, I've got to be very careful because if there's anything he can roll in, he's going to do it. It's going to happen. And one of the dogs in the book is Billy Joe, and he takes it to the next level. If there's anything to roll in, he will. And so Mace has kind of almost a little doggy wash set up outside for him with the little hose and some doggy shampoo and stuff because he's got to, you know, wash this guy 3 times a week. And I think I have with Vira, he names his dogs. He likes country western and country rock, and so Vira, her real name is Elvira from the Oak Ridge Boys, and I won't sing because your viewers will be hitting off real quick.
I'd be inclined to join you, though. That would even be worse.
3-part harmony.
I wish I could be as low as that one of the Oak Ridge Boys that but Vira, I've had one of our we had a Pomeranian that was just smart as all heck, and so I think I've taken some of her and incorporated that into Vira. And then the other dogs I just have a lot of fun with. Sue is just a male German Shepherd who's the alpha male, and he thinks he runs the house, but he probably really does. And but characters, I don't really base them on people that I know or anything. I think it's all just kind of pulling them out, trying to make them threatening or try to, you know.
What kind of a procedure do you follow when you're writing?
Well, it's not much of a procedure, actually. It's pretty chaotic, just because I don't recommend it or anything. It's just the way my life is ever since I started writing has been extremely limited and disjointed amounts of time and energy available, and so I write whenever I get a chance, you know, on my phone, or I have got computers scattered throughout the house. Just whenever I get a few minutes, I'll get on, and the cloud has saved me tons of time because I can just pick it up anywhere with any device and continue doing it. But I wrote my first 2 books on a Palm Pilot, if you remember that.
Oh, you did.
You know, that's hard. You know, but it was a portable device that was available at the time and in the early 2000s, and you know, this tiny screen and everything. I still do quite a bit on my phone, actually. And again, I don't recommend it, but if you want to write bad enough, you figure out a way to do it. And so I have no schedule. There are days when I don't write at all. Other days where maybe I'll get in an hour or 2. You know, and it's just pretty chaotic, and somehow it works. I end up with
talking to some of the writers that they get up at 5 in the morning and they have this discipline, etc. And let's hear what Jeff does.
Yeah, I'm more of a binge writer. I think my default mode is kind of slacker. And, oh, well, is there a Twins game on? Well, the Gophers are on. Well, I got to go and get some food. But there's periodically I can see like 4 or 5 chapters ahead, and then I just get junk food and coffee, and then all of a sudden 3 days go by and I've done a real good chunk. And so I love when the binge comes on, you know, because I can usually let it run for like 3 or 4 days.
That could be a blessing.
And it's a blessing if you're, you know, I'm going along at kind of my usual turtle-like rate, but then all of a sudden I can jump 20,000 words ahead when I've, you know, gone into kind of.
Well, we should mention that you have and always have had a full-time day job, right? So
Yes.
how do you fit it in around that?
Yes, I think a lot of vacation times and evenings, and I'll take maybe a Friday and a Monday off, so I've got 4 days, and I try to hope that the binge is with me at that point. May the binge be with you.
I was going to say that would be a title for a book.
Yeah.
May the binge be with you.
Right.
Are you still practicing?
Oh, no, not for many years. I ran into health problems, had to give it up, and I wrote 2 books in the early 2000s, and then I didn't put out another book for another 10 years because health problems again. But since 2014, when I started the Penn Wilkinson series, I've been managing to get them out at a pretty good clip.
Do you point for one a year or something like that?
About every year and a half. Yeah, I took 2 years with the last one, and actually I will take 2 years with the Incel as well. But it just life happens, things come up, and it's
for
just.
Sure.
Well, I think you were telling me that you've actually gotten fan mail from some folks that may have a disability that are enjoying the Penn Wilkinson series. Fans of Penn.
Yeah, they do, but as I pointed out, sometimes they'll call me on details that I could improve on as well. As far as I know, there's nothing really gotten flagrantly wrong, but they always have ideas for me, and yeah, I've done shows similar to this for people with disabilities, and done it a couple of times, and yeah, so people are interested. They enjoy seeing a character who is an entertaining character who has to deal with some of the same challenges that they do.
Have you been speaking to groups of,
I haven't, no. I've done it via an even better channel, a show like this.
Well, I do. I guess I get some email. I get a lot of emails from folks that are just dog people, and periodically they'll send some pictures, and so that's all fun. I've only had 1 or 2 that have said, a golden retriever would never behave that way, and I'm like, well, she has her own backstory. Vira has her own backstory. There was some trauma when Mace adopts her, so she's not your ordinary golden retriever. But otherwise, it's been just really some good.
Well, we should mention that this dog, Vira, has kind of a 6th or 7th sense, even almost a paranormal type ability to sniff out wrongdoers.
Right. It's almost like Mace puts it. Well, there's DNA that a lot of forensics teams have to dig through. And almost Vira has taken it to the next level where there's like some scent DNA. And in the first book, they're called in and they find the most recent victim of a serial killer, and then someone that had been kidnapped and been held for a while. And Vira, there's a bunch of looky-loos on the street, and Vira starts barking and wanting to go at one of them because she's connected the smell on this guy that was all over the victim, and that's where the Finders kind of begins.
Well, dogs are so incredible, though. They can do things like that.
Dogs are supernatural. I mean, we have 5 million scent receptors in our nasal cavity. Some of the dogs, bloodhounds, they've got 300 million, and I'm lucky. I go to a movie theater and I got to buy popcorn. But I can only, if I start listing things I recognize, I'm only going to get in the double digits, some burning leaves, maybe the milk goes bad. But dogs, that's how they decipher the world. So there's thousands of different scents that they are aware of. And I've got a Beagle who would also make a good human remains detection dog. I'm no dog trainer. I don't have the patience. My wife will vouch for that. But I can watch him, and you can see, the nose goes up for air scenting, or when he's following a trail, it goes down. Rabbit 100 yards ahead runs across the trail, and then when he gets there, because there's also a time kind of thing where he's, you know, he can smell something was here a few minutes ago. And so it's absolutely amazing. The only drawback is he'll find any food in any park anywhere, and then I get into some obnoxious wrestling match with him to get it out of his mouth.
We have that with a Springer, and you don't get it out of her mouth.
Yeah,
That's
right.
So, well, we have 3 minutes left. How about some thoughts to share with the viewers, or maybe people who want to become writers?
Yeah, we were just talking, Alan, before with a member of your staff here who's interested in writing, and my advice to writers, would-be writers, is always don't try to do it alone. You know, do what she did and take some classes, find a group. You need that. Writing in a cave is dangerous. I know because I've done it. I had to do it out of necessity for some years, but things changed immeasurably when I got involved in an organization for mystery writers and a writers group. I didn't really do classes very much, but anything you can do along those lines, I think, to get the encouragement and support and information that you need.
Yeah, and if you're starting out, you have to read in your genre. You've got to just read. You've got to be a bookworm in your genre. And I know one of my issues is I could write the books faster if I didn't. I think Brian and I are both research nerds. Yeah. And if I'm picking out somebody that is driving a car, then I'll wind up on some car dealer site for an hour trying to figure out what would go with the personality. Or even, you know, if they're meeting at a restaurant, I never have Mace go, "Oh, the grilled cheese with the mashed potatoes." But I wind up looking at their menu. You know, I need help, Alan. I need help to get over that.
You know, research is so important.
And so fun.
Yeah. We have been talking with two very accomplished writers, Brian Lutterman, who not only has a series, but certainly has a freestanding book coming out, which we're looking forward to in 24. Jeff Burton, who has series upon series upon series, and he too has one coming out in 2024. Right. So you have been watching The Writer's Corner, brought to you really to encourage you to write. We have so many great writers in Minnesota, and you know, if you pull up to a construction site and you see people working all over the site and you yell out, "Is anybody here a novelist?" 20 hands go up. The fact of the matter is, anybody can write. You just have to apply yourself to it. You have to do it, and you have to really, really be dedicated. We thank you